Did you know that Madeleine McCann's disappearance remains shrouded in mysteries, even after so many years? Today we will analyze the most intriguing details and the secrets that few discuss about the McCann family and the events of that night. What is still hidden? Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any details of the most intriguing stories and surprising twists like this one. And tell me in the comments, what do you think really happened on the night Madeleine McCann disappeared? On that night of May 3, 2007, in the village of Praia da Luz, Portugal, everything seemed normal for the McCann family. It was supposed to be just another family vacation night. Madeleine, only 3 years old, was sleeping with her twin siblings in the apartment's bedroom, while her parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, were just a few meters away, dining with friends. But something happened, something that would completely change their lives, and, in a way, the lives of all of us who have followed this case. The question that echoes to this day is, what really happened that night? The McCanns claim they were taking turns checking on the children every 20 or 30 minutes. They made sure everything was okay, until it wasn't. Around 10 p.m., Kate returned to the apartment to check on the children. Upon entering, the bedroom door was slightly open, something she found strange, and in an instant, her life changed forever. Madeleine was no longer there. This version is already widely known, but what few know is that in the days that followed, details and inconsistencies emerged that, instead of clarifying, only raised more doubts about what happened. For example, did you know that at the beginning of the investigation, one of the most controversial details was the smell of blood and decomposition detected by sniffer dogs inside the apartment? These highly trained dogs also indicated something suspicious in a car rented by the McCanns weeks after the disappearance. This raised numerous theories, some directly involving the family, others pointing to something much bigger and darker. Now think with me, why would the dogs identify something like that if Madeleine was supposedly taken by a kidnapper? It doesn't seem to make sense at first glance, and yet it is one of the most controversial points of the entire investigation. Another detail that many are unaware of relates to the versions the McCanns provided in the following days. In the initial statements, there were discrepancies even among the friends who were with them at dinner. Small details such as who checked on the children at what moment, or how the bedroom door was positioned, were described differently. These contradictions cast a cloud of doubt over what really happened that night. But perhaps the most shocking aspect is the way Madeleine's bedroom was found. According to the parents, the window was open and the curtain was fluttering in the wind. This theoretically would indicate a forced entry or exit, but when the Portuguese police examined the site, they found no clear signs of a break-in. How could someone have entered without leaving marks? And here comes the point that almost no one talks about. One of the friends present at dinner, when questioned about the check times, also admitted that the back door was unlocked that night. This was not widely disclosed at the time, but raises crucial questions. Was the apartment really secure, or was it a tragedy waiting to happen? Another interesting point, and few know about it, is the behavior of the McCanns after the disappearance. While many would expect parents in such a situation to be despondent and reclusive, Kate and Jerry opted for something different. They actively participated in interviews, traveled to meet authorities, and even hired a public relations team to manage the narrative. Some people saw this as determination to find their daughter, others as an attempt to divert attention from something bigger. And we cannot ignore the contradictory reports that have emerged over the years. Witnesses claim to have seen a child resembling Madeleine in various countries, from Morocco to Australia. These leads were investigated, but none resulted in concrete answers. Now, returning to what was found in the apartment, one question remains to this day. What happened to the sheets of the bed where Madeleine was? Photographs taken by the police show the twins' crib neatly arranged, but Madeleine's bed was empty and seemingly disheveled. This would indicate that she really left, or was taken from there. But again, there is no conclusive evidence. These details on their own already make the case one of the most intriguing and frustrating in history. But there is something more that few realize. From the beginning, the McCanns were surrounded by a group of friends who became central figures. Questions arise. Who were these people, and what was their true role that night? The official narrative suggests that everyone was there just to support the McCanns. But over the years, rumors and theories have emerged that some of these friends might know more than they said. Some have even raised the possibility that part of the actions that night may have been coordinated to protect something. And this leads us to one of the most disturbing questions. What do we still not know about the McCann family and the events of that night? To what extent were secrets kept? Madeleine McCann's disappearance is not just a police case. It is an enigma that continues to challenge our understanding. After all, How can something so tragic be surrounded by so many unanswered questions? And if you think you've heard it all, let me tell you, what's coming next will completely change the way you understand this case. The night of May 3rd, 2007 seemed to be just another one for the McCann family and their friends. But the details of that night and the reports that followed leave many questions in the air. And that's what we need to connect now. States that upon entering the room, she found the window open, something that immediately caught her attention. She said it didn't make sense because the window should have been closed. However, the initial forensics at the site found no evidence of a break-in. No marks on the window, no sign that someone had forced entry. So how was the window open? Could someone have entered and left without leaving traces? Or was the window open for another reason? Here, an inconsistency arises. While Kate describes the scene as a clear sign that someone had taken Madeleine, the police who investigated the case reported that the explanation wasn't so obvious. Another crucial point is the bedroom door. In initial statements, Kate mentioned that the door was slightly open when she entered. But other accounts from friends present that night suggest different versions, with vague descriptions about how the door was positioned at earlier moments. These details may seem small, but in a case like this, every minute matters. And what about the timings? The McCanns and their friends claim they took turns going to the apartment to check on the children. However, notes made by the police show contradictions in the statements about who went and at what time. In one statement, a friend claimed he didn't hear or see anything out of the ordinary during his supposed visit to the apartment. But if no one saw something suspicious, how do you explain the disappearance? These contradictions also appear in descriptions of Madeleine herself. The McCanns provided photos of their daughter to help in the search, but the first image released showed Madeleine with a different look than she had at the time of her disappearance. It was an old photo that generated criticism and confusion because her hair was shorter and the haircut was different. This made the initial search work harder since the image didn't exactly reflect how she was at that moment. And of course, we cannot ignore the sniffer dogs, which identified smells of blood and decomposition in the apartment and in the car rented by the McCanns weeks after the disappearance. The report describes that the dogs signaled specific areas, such as the car's trunk and Madeleine's bedroom. But once again, the explanations are contradictory. The McCanns claimed that these results could have been influenced by objects like diapers or raw meat that were in the car. Still, these findings raise significant suspicions since no other investigation point provided such a concrete clue. Speaking of objects, there's another element that stands out. The stuffed animal that Madeleine took everywhere was found with Kate after the disappearance. According to her, the toy had such a strong smell of Madeleine that she carried it with her as a form of comfort. But the exact location of this object at the time of the disappearance was never fully explained. Was it on her bed, or was it taken from somewhere else? Additionally, the calls to the police that night also raised questions. The police were called almost an hour after the disappearance was noticed. In that interval, the McCanns and their friends searched for Madeleine on their own, which seems natural. However, experts point out that this delay could have compromised the initial search efforts, especially considering that the first minutes after a child's disappearance are crucial. Another point raised over the years is the behavior of the friends present that night. Many theories suggest that the group was trying to protect the McCanns from something, but it was never clear what exactly it could be. Some critics questioned whether the group had coordinated their stories before giving statements, which would explain some of the similarities and contradictions in the accounts. Finally, there is an issue that few discuss but may be essential to understanding the case: the control of the narrative. From the beginning, the McCanns hired communication specialists to manage how the case was handled by the media. This ensured they had international visibility, but also raised suspicions. Why dedicate so much time to managing public opinion while their daughter was missing? All these pieces create a disturbing puzzle. None of these elements by themselves solve the mystery, but together they create a narrative full of gaps, questions, and secrets. What really happened that night in Praia da Luz? Are we facing a sequence of mistakes and bad luck? Or is there something much deeper behind all this? Every detail we analyze leads us to more questions. And what is most impressive is how, even so many years later, the truth about Madeleine McCann seems always one step ahead, out of reach. Now stop and think, what is really being hidden? Is the truth in the details, or were these details created to distract us? The answer may be closer than we imagine, or farther than we would like to admit. Some questions seem simpler than they really are. The truth is, for every answer presented, other questions arise, creating a web of uncertainties. And this is exactly where one of the most debated, and least explained elements of the entire investigation comes in: the theories surrounding the disappearance. The first theory, which many accept as the most likely, is that of kidnapping. The open window in the room where Madeleine was sleeping was pointed out as a possible entry or exit point for the supposed kidnapper. But if this theory seems so obvious, why does it also raise so many doubts? The scenario described by the McCanns shows no signs of a break-in. There are no marks on the window, nor evidence of forced entry. For a kidnapper who supposedly acted quickly in a high-risk environment, the care and silence of this action seem almost superhuman. And here is a point that few people discuss. The location of the apartment does not favor someone trying to act unnoticed. It is in a visible place, with constant movement and attentive neighbors. So how did someone manage to enter, take a child, and leave without being noticed? This is one of the reasons why this theory, although widely publicized, does not explain everything. Now let's move to what many consider more controversial: the accident hypothesis. In this version, Madeleine would have suffered something severe inside the apartment, and the subsequent actions would have been an attempt to cover up what happened. This theory gained strength with the sniffer dogs that detected odors of blood and decomposition in specific points of the apartment and in the car rented by the McCanns weeks later. But if this is true, why did the results never lead to a concrete conclusion? The DNA collected did not present a definitive match. Was it a coincidence? Or is there something more to the story that we do not know? And of course, we cannot ignore another possibility raised over the years: the involvement of criminal networks. The region where the McCanns were staying has a history of human trafficking activities. Madeleine, with her striking appearance and international profile, could have been an easy target for such a group. But if this happened, why was there never a ransom demand? And why did no solid clue lead in that direction? Now, a crucial detail that is rarely mentioned. In the days leading up to the disappearance, witnesses reported the presence of suspicious people lurking around the area. One of these people was described as someone who stayed near the apartment, observing the surroundings. These descriptions were handed over to the authorities, but what was done with them? And why was there no further information about this? Another intriguing point is the testimonies of the group of friends who were with the McCanns on the night in question. Called the Tapas 7, they presented versions that, at times, did not align. For example, while some stated that everything seemed calm until the moment Kate discovered the disappearance, others mentioned hearing strange noises beforehand. These contradictions are not just details. They create gaps that make it difficult to reconstruct what really happened. And here we reach a connection that few realize: the timeline. According to official records, the visits to the room where Madeleine was sleeping occurred at regular intervals of approximately 30 minutes. But with so many movements, isn't it curious that no one noticed something strange? If a kidnapper entered and left within this short period, why did no one see or hear anything? And more, who could have been monitoring the adult's steps to act at such a precise moment? Returning to the physical evidence, there is another element that remains a mystery. One of the sniffer dogs pointed out signs of decomposition on Madeleine's favorite toy, which Kate carried with her days after the disappearance. This fact, combined with the odor detected in the trunk of the rented car, raises the question: do these pieces of evidence indicate something concrete, or were they misinterpreted? And finally, there is the role of the media. From the beginning, the McCanns strategically used the spotlight to keep the case in the headlines. This ensured that Madeleine became a recognized face worldwide, but also attracted criticism. Some argue that this focus on the public narrative diverted attention from important points of the investigation. Others suggest that the visibility was an attempt to control public perception of the events. Each of these theories has its gaps, but they all share a common element: the lack of definitive answers. Whatever the truth is, it is wrapped in contradictions, coincidences, and unanswered questions. And here is something for you to reflect on. All these versions, evidence, and accounts lead us to an essential point. Are we dealing with a case of bad luck, human errors, and investigation failures? Or is there something much more complex and calculated behind all this? The truth, as far as we can see, is still out of reach. But like every story, it may lie in the details, those that seem insignificant at first glance, but may hold the greatest revelations. What remains for us is to keep analyzing, questioning, and above all, not letting the search for the truth be forgotten. Shortly after Madeleine McCann's disappearance, while the world incredulously followed each update of the case, one detail began to stand out amidst the chaos of information: the accounts of the family and friends present on that trip. Among them, one specific aspect caught attention: the group's detailed routine on the night everything happened and the apparent inconsistencies that emerged throughout the investigations. The McCanns and their friends, known as the Tapa 7, insisted that there was a rotation system to check on the children in the room. The idea was simple. While the adults dined at the resort's restaurant, a few meters from the apartment where Madeleine and the other children slept, one of them would periodically check to ensure everything was okay. The issue is that this simple routine began to crumble when the authorities started reconstructing the timeline of that night. One of the strangest points involves the bedroom window. According to Kate McCann, Madeleine's mother, upon entering the room and noticing her daughter's disappearance, she found the window open, with the curtains fluttering, but according to experts, there were no signs of break-in or indications that someone had entered or exited through there. This raises the question: if the window wasn't used, how did the supposed kidnapper enter the room? And why was it open if none of the other windows were tampered with? And there's more. There are conflicting reports among the group members about the exact moment each person went to check on the children. Some claimed that everything seemed normal, while others mentioned hearing strange noises coming from the room. These contradictions, though subtle, create an important gap in the narrative. After all, what really happened between 8:30 p.m. and 10 p.m. when Madeleine was reported missing? But perhaps the most intriguing of all lies in a clue that only surfaced weeks later: the sniffer dogs brought into the case. They indicated traces of blood and the smell of human decomposition in the trunk of the car rented by the McCanns. Once again, this generated a wave of speculations. However, the DNA samples collected were not conclusive, leaving the question open. But think about it. How did these traces get there? And why has this detail, despite being so significant, never led to a satisfactory official explanation? However, here is the point that ties all these questions together. The truth about Madeleine's disappearance continues to be a mystery, not due to a lack of clues, but because of the gaps and contradictions surrounding the case. Every detail seems to generate new questions instead of offering answers. And now you must be wondering, what do we really know? The answer is that even after so many years, Madeleine McCann's case remains shrouded in shadows. And perhaps the key to unraveling this mystery lies hidden in a detail that has yet to receive proper attention. It is undeniable that the Madeleine McCann case remains one of the greatest mysteries of recent history. The contradictions, confusing clues, and gaps in the investigation leave a void that continues to intrigue. My opinion, this case is marked not only by what we know, but primarily by what we don't know. There is something unrevealed, something that always seems to slip through our fingers. And honestly, the deeper we delve, the more it seems that the truth is surrounded by layers of secrets involving the night of the disappearance and the days that followed. Will these layers ever be completely removed? If you've made it this far, comment, "I am the Truth Hunter," so I know you watched until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow the next videos and leave your opinion in the comments. What do you think really happened? And if this case left you thinking, the next video will take you even deeper into another story full of twists and turns. Click now to watch and continue this journey. See you there.